This is a Shamanic Approach, and I am Angela Faith, shamanic practitioner and mentor. And I am so glad that you are here. I'm glad that I am here. This is episode 1, and I could have easily titled it A Shamanic Approach to Launching a Podcast. It has been a process and absolutely a learning process, but isn't everything that we embark on. So I am happy that I am here and I have not backed down from this invitation to do this because, like a lot of us, I'm finding a desire to use my voice, and I want to be really deliberate in how I use it. So, again, I'm happy that you are here, and I want to first start by saying that it is never my intention to tell you what to think, feel, or believe. I do wish to inspire you to think, to feel, and to believe new things. Maybe drop what you know and be open to new ideas, new possibilities. It is my mission to inspire others to create wholeness, wellness, and harmony through spiritual work and guidance. And that is what I do. So, what is a shamanic approach? Let's talk about that. As a shamanic practitioner, I have spent much time in this lifetime and many lifetimes before cultivating a relationship with spirit allies and practicing engaging with the spirit world. And I have gotten confident in my abilities to journey to other realms. And you can do a nice Google search about shamans and shamanism and find out more about that, journeying to other worlds to restore wellness and to seek direct divination. That is not really what this podcast is going to be about. But what it is about is a shamanic approach is the way that I approach life. It is a way of being. Shamanism is a spiritual practice and believed to be the oldest spiritual practice known to humankind. It was not always called shamanism. That word does come from Siberia, but it has also undertaken, because it is our culture to want to label, or we need words. We need words to identify things. And so the shaman is one, yes, that can journey to other realms. And in indigenous times, a shaman or a medicine person did this for the community. But here's something that the shaman understood is that the ability that they have, it's their awareness of the ability that makes it so. But I want you to think about that ability that the shaman is aware of. What does the shaman do the rest of the day when they're not seeking direct divination or doing healings? How do they approach life? Now, there are in all things polarities. There are those that work in the highest realms and those that choose not to, and that is not where we're going to go with this, but we're going to talk about a shamanic approach to modern living. And just like you don't have to be Christ to apply Christian principles to your life, you don't have to be Buddha to apply Buddhist principles to your life. You do not have to be a shaman to apply shamanic principles to your life. Now, what does that look like? What are shamanic principles? It is a way of being and a way of engaging, and it's also an experiential practice. So whether you have a religion or you don't, shamanism is an approach to life that is engaging. It's interactive. It requires reciprocity, which is give and take. Again, an idea that our culture has gotten very, very far away from. It's also about storytelling and not just having a connection with nature. Yes, it is about having a connection with nature, but it goes beyond that. It's a connection and a relationship. It's going to nature as your teacher. Nature is your classroom, and everything in it is there to teach you. It is a way of seeking to live in harmony with all of creation. I spent 25 years as a court stenographer. I joined that profession, entered that profession as a young girl. I was a single mother of twins and I needed a skill. And so I went to school at nights and mothered my daughters during the day. And I developed the skill and I was a court stenographer. Amazing career. But I was like the fly on the wall. I was a freelance court reporter. That means I would go on depositions to conference rooms, to different law firms. I didn't work in the courtrooms. So if you've ever been in a deposition or in litigation, a lot of personal injuries, car wrecks, those kind of things, you've had your deposition taken, and I was the one that had the steno machine and would take down the testimony and produce a written transcript of it. 25 years of this, I got to hear a lot of people's story. If you've ever been in litigation, a discovery deposition is just that. It's to discover as much as they can about you. And if you are the one bringing the lawsuit, which that was what a lot of my work was, well, I did it in both, those that were being sued and those that were bringing the litigation. But the attorneys on each side want to know everything about you so that they can make their case, so that they can challenge your credibility. So what I would do is I would sit back and I would listen, and I started seeing patterns. Of course, 25 years, of course you would do that. But because of who I am and what I do, different things would stand out to me. One of the questions that would be asked, of course, is, do you have any health issues, chronic health issues, or any health issues? What prescriptions are you on? Saw a lot of patterns there. And how we've become very comfortable with certain diagnoses as just, well, the majority of people have them, so it's not that big of a deal. And that saddens me. But here's a question that would come up at the end that would confuse the person being asked the question, and it would also make them a little defensive. And this is the question: are you a member of any church? Well, why do you want to know that? They would ask. And the attorney would say, just answer the question. And the most common answer was no. No. And here's what I would discover also, because I've learned everything in the deposition about this person's life, pretty much what they do, every doctor they've been to, how many times they've been married. I know about their relationships now. And I start seeing what having no spiritual practice results in. It's a lot of what we have accepted as normal: illness, depression, anxiety. We have so many diagnoses, and we have even more prescriptions for them. I'm not a doctor yet. I am not at all saying that Western medicine does not have a place. But I do know that we must find balance. I know this because I've been told this from a much higher realm than what we all are aware of. There must be balance between the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. That piece, the spiritual piece. So a shamanic approach is a spiritual practice and approach to life. We don't all have organized religion to support us, and even those that have organized religion don't always feel supported. Or maybe just on one day of the week when they're in their community, but then throughout the other days of the week and the minutes and the hours and the struggles. A spiritual practice, if that is lacking, we can do all the workouts and we can do all of the therapy and we can do all of the things for the physical, the emotional, and the mental. But if there isn't a spiritual element, it will not be sustaining. And then we tend to look outside of ourselves for other things to fill up that element, and that can look like addictions. that, and all sorts of addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, relationships, shopping, anything, anything to fill that spiritual component. How do I know this? Well, I know this because, as many people that do what I do, I had an invitation to step into a spiritual role as a, not necessarily a shamanic practitioner, but as a teacher, as a healer, if you will. And I've always been different ever since I was born. I knew things that children just didn't know. And people would say, oh, she's wise beyond her years. And I've always been that. And in history, often when one would get the invitation to step into the role as a shamanic practitioner or something in that realm, medicine woman, healer, whatever, light worker, there are different names. Again, not getting too caught up in the literal definition of shaman here, but one who restores wellness and seeks direct divination. We'll keep it general in that way just for this conversation. But I've always been a little different. And how I approach life is a little different. So getting back to this invitation, in history, a lot of times people that would get this calling, it's not something that you just decide, ooh, I think I'll be a shaman or a shamanic practitioner. And let me clarify, I've been taught, and I feel this is correct in my soul, that I don't call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. Someone else can refer to me as a shaman, but I do not refer to myself as a shaman. But I want you to know that it is a title that I use simply so others can find me. It's not a job title. I'm not just a practitioner when I'm in a session. It is, again, for me, a way of being, a way of approaching life. And that's what we're going to talk about. Because here's what has happened in history with other healers and medicine people, and in my own story. It's not an easy invitation or calling to answer. There are initiations. There are things that must be faced. And in not accepting that calling or that invitation, it can create a lot of challenges and obstacles in one's life. And I want to share with you that the most hopeless I have ever been in my whole life is when I didn't have faith in anything that wasn't human. I had put all of my faith in my human relationships, my parents, of course, and friends and lovers and churches. And I would feel good for a period of time, and then I wouldn't. And I continued to just lose faith. The organized religion did not fit my story. It really did not. I did not grow up in a pretty Christian home, and my teachings were different. My mother was a witch. I've always been aware that there are other realms, and I did try organized religion. I wanted it to work. That's one thing about people like me you will find is a lot of times we spend much of our lives trying to conform and fit in, and that is a little bit of what makes it a crazy experience. It's when I quit trying to conform and fit in that I was able to identify and access my own abilities that I'm aware that we all have. We all have it, but many of us aren't capable or have the capacity at this moment to access it. No one's fault, especially in our culture today, but every generation there have been those that have a knowing that we use the term awaken a lot in today's jargon, in today's conversations. To me, an awakening is simply an awareness. It is an awareness. An awareness that something is different, or I don't have to live this way anymore. And I continue to have awakenings as I evolve and expand, because that's what we're here to do, to evolve and expand. So taking a shamanic approach is taking a spiritual approach. It is experiential. It's not just a concept or an idea. I do want to share with you something. Let me just grab it here. This is from a book, The Wisdom of the Shamans, Don Jose Ruiz. I don't know if that will be backwards for you. But I love this paragraph that's in the book that I'm going to share with you now. The wisdom of the ancient shamans was not something primitive or reserved for a chosen few, but a complex and powerful series of teachings available to all of us. It is the wisdom of waking up, of finding your own personal freedom, of living in peace and harmony, and of being of service to others and the planet. Quite simply, it is the wisdom of love and life. This wisdom is within you. Don Jose Ruiz, it is within you. But again, if I am blocked with stories and beliefs and fears and resentments, I may not be able to access that wisdom. And that is what I do. I guide and support others in removing that blocked energy, removing those things that are keeping an individual from being aware of their access to that ancient wisdom. Let me rephrase that. I co-created a program called A Shamanic Approach to Modern Living. In my work as a shamanic practitioner and doing sessions to restore wellness, I found that people would be inspired after a session in big ways. They would feel in their power and want to make changes and have inspirational thoughts and suddenly the motivation and to take action. But then they would feel overwhelmed with, what do I do? What do I change? Where do I start? I'm healing and I'm feeling and I'm sensing, and I need to make sense of all of this beautiful stuff that's happening. So a shamanic approach to modern living is going into learning how to approach life in a shamanic way. It's not about, I don't teach others how to be a shamanic practitioner. I believe that much work needs to be done to answer that calling before we start learning to heal others. Because I also know as a wounded healer, we can, if we skip our own work, if we skip those individual lessons that can't be just taught in a workshop or in a book, but those individual initiations and rites of passage, then we become someone that is healing to feel healed. That's not sustaining, right? So approaching life in a shamanic way is not about being a shamanic practitioner. It's about restoring your own wellness through daily practices. I want to share that in indigenous times, people would learn through storytelling, stories that were passed down from generations, many generations, and teachings, songs. My great-grandmother, she taught me so much over breaking beans from the garden. I remember we would sit and there'd be a huge bucket, actually many, many huge buckets of beans, and we'd have to break them. And I remember asking, well, how long do we have to do this? And she would say, until they're all done. And so much would happen over breaking beans with my great-grandmother and my granny and my mom and my aunts. We would tell stories. We would laugh. Sometimes we'd sit in silence and just listen. It was something magical and beautiful about that time. We are many generations removed from sitting together and being still Often we may not even sit in the same room anymore. A lot of us buy our green beans off of the grocery shelf and don't have to sit around and break buckets of beans and spend time together. So it doesn't mean that we don't have access to our stories. It also doesn't mean we don't have access to ceremonies and rituals as rites of passage. That's another beautiful thing in a shamanic approach, is incorporating ritual and ceremony. Because if we don't have a religion and we don't have an ancestor or an elder in the physical form to teach us generational traditions or ceremonies, we may feel that we don't have this in our life. And again, that is a spiritual component that can change the game. So learning to access that wisdom and create your own ceremonies and your own rituals and how to do that. We don't need to steal or imitate another culture's. We don't want to do that. But it's also important to cultivate that relationship with your own compassionate spirit allies. I'm going to wind down now. I feel really good about being here with you, and I will have guests from time to time. The topics will change. If you have met me, know me, you know I am very spirit-led. I have gone back and forth on, will this be a scripted podcast or will it be free flow? And this is free flow. So this means that I may digress and I may start talking about something and go completely off track. But here's what I trust. I trust that I need to go there, either for you or for me. Take what you want and leave the rest. If you would like more information about me, you can check out my website, angelafaith.love. If you have any questions, you can set up a free complimentary clarity call on my website. I would be happy to connect with you and answer any questions that you have. Again, I will approach different topics here. Some will be fun and light, and some will be topics that I will feel we just need to talk about. But anything that I talk about, anything that I do, I approach it using the shamanic principles, and that is why this is a shamanic approach. Thank you for listening, and I want you to know that you are safe, you are supported, and you are so loved. I'm going to end now with us doing some deep breaths together, and then I will do some drumming and singing. So if you want to get yourself comfortable, you can leave your eyes open for this. You don't have to close them, but if you are in a safe place where you can close your eyes, I encourage you to do so, or take your gaze down to your hands and just let your eyelids relax. And just bringing your awareness into your body, observing any sensations that you may be experiencing. And bring your awareness to your hands, your fingertips, your palms. And now just soften and relax your hands. When the hands are still, the mind can rest. First, empty your lungs. Just blow out. Now take a deep breath in through the nose. Breathe in. And gently exhale through your lips. Deep breath in through the nose, filling up. And exhale, gently releasing. And one more deep breath into your belly. Breathe in. And exhale, settling in. Let me pick up my drum here. Just drum lightly and We will talk about the role of the drum in another episode. The drum can bring nations together. Imagine that. Let's sing a little song about the grandmothers. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, stand in your power, women, stand in your power. Listen, 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 listen. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, teach and be wise, go and teach and be wise. Listen, 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 listen. I hear the voice of my grandmother's calling me. I hear the voice of my grandmother's song. She says, wake up, child, wake up, wake up. Listen, 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 listen. Listen, listen. In order to listen, we must get still. We must get quiet. It takes practice in a world that gives us many distractions. Stay happy, stay well. I love you. Have a wonderful day.